Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining me, whether you're coming in live or you're coming in at a completely separate time when it's more suitable to you. I love having you guys with me for the next episode of Better Body TV. In this episode, guys, we're going to be talking all about nutrition and really how to get your food right in order to get your transformation happening. So, look, increasingly over time, more and more people will come in live. But firstly, I wanted to, thanks for joining us, Alex, mate. I hope you're well. Happy Sunday over there in Aussie, mate. I hope things are great. Hey, listen, it's been a bit of a trying week, I've got to tell you guys. So, I want you to sort of take a look down here. Oh, man. If you look at my right-hand side, which is this one, I actually bloody ruptured my bicep tendon lifting a freaking mattress of all things, would you believe? So basically what that means is it's completely ripped off. So you got two heads to your bicep and I've ripped off one of them, lifting a mattress onto a car. What an absolute joke. Lift for 25 years, never get an injury, lift a mattress onto the top of a car and that's what you get. So having some company here this morning is awesome. So let's get into today's session. What basically I want to talk about, guys, is really, firstly, an introduction on fat loss, okay, because that's what we're majority targeting when we're doing a transformation. The second part, I just want to touch a little bit about what actual fat is, because a lot of people just don't actually know what it is. I feel that once you get the concept of the role of fat in your head, then you're better equipped to being able to go about actually losing fat. Does that make sense? And on the third point, I'm going to take you through what are the 4 commandments of healthy eating. Now, these are commandments that I share with my one-on-one clients. And really, these are the fundamentals of healthy eating. You get these things right, and you're going to get results. So, without further ado, let's get into today's session and we're going to switch over to screen share, and I'm still up here to keep you company. So what I want to start with, guys, is just making this point about the media's, firstly the media, and secondly the health industry. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry and their job is to keep you stuck. Now think about that. By keeping you confused, by reincarnating a new message every 3 or 4 months, what that causes for your brain is this idea that, I must be doing something wrong. I need to look for the new shiny object. And this allows them to sell you something again. But I want to bring it back to letting you know that really, guys, the fat loss science is simple. We're going to talk about that in a minute. There is absolutely no conjecture, no confusion amongst anyone that is honest about this, about what causes fat loss. So key point, fat loss science is simple. Losing fat, however, is a little bit more difficult. And you want to have a bit of a think about why potentially that might be the case. Well, think about it. If fat loss science is simple, that's because it's just going to come down to calorie balance. We're talking about calories in versus the calories you burn. That's a very simple concept. I want you to think about it kind of like a bank account. If you deposit more than you take out, you're going to put on weight, or your bank account's going to go up. Well, in the very same way, that's how calorie balance works. So there's no confusion over the calorie balance thing. What makes weight loss hard is that there is an emotional and a mental side of weight loss. So if you're at home and watching this, just put your hand up and say, hey, because that's what makes it difficult. There's emotional eating. There is the responsibilities of being a man, having to fit it in with whatever your family's doing. There is the confusion that's put in by the media, put in by the fat loss industry, and it just becomes a real mental challenge. But the key point here is the science is not debatable. So let's have a bit more of a look at that. Firstly, what is fat? So let's just start with actually understanding what it actually is. What fat is a stored form of energy. Now, there are other stored forms of energy in the body. The first one is protein. We store protein in our muscles, okay? And that's why a diet has to be high enough in protein if you want to build muscle size. Now, the other type of storage energy in the body is a stored form of carbohydrate. Now, you might have heard of the word glycogen before. Glycogen is simply a stored form of sugar, okay? But the challenge with glycogen is that it is burned up very quickly. So back in the old days, remember when you used to do that carbohydrate loading that your dad told you to do before a game of footy? What the concept was at that time is that you could superload your body with glycogen. But the problem is we just can't store a lot of it. However, fat is completely different. Body fat is a stored form of energy, and we store it in our adipose tissue. You might have heard of that before. Now, our adipose tissue capacity is virtually unlimited. You can store an endless amount of fat inside your body. What happens is you can increase both the number of fat cells and the size of the fat cells, and what that means is you've got an endless reservoir of capacity energy. Now, back when we were cavemen and we went through periods of famine and feast, this was a really beneficial thing, right? But in these days of Uber Eats and for the vast majority of the world not running out of food or not being in famine, fat becomes really disastrous for our health. And have a look at the images that you see here, and these are the main reasons why. And particularly why men are affected. Men are most affected because we store fat around our abdomen, around our gut. You rarely see men storing fat around their bum, but they're skinny up top. That doesn't happen. We tend to be more like an egg on legs, right? Now, the reason that happens is to do with our hormones. What is the downside to that? Well, if we're storing all this fat around our organs, what happens is our organs get strangled by this fat. Now, if you can imagine, for example, a heart here that is being strangled by a bunch of fat, the heart's capacity to actually beat becomes restricted. Further to that, the little blood vessels that supply the heart muscle and actually keep it pumping get filled with cholesterol and other fats. And this is why being overweight is such a dangerous thing. If you look at having arthritis, early arthritis, if you have a look at diabetes, any forms of heart condition, stroke, the number one cause for these conditions is obesity, and it all comes down to the abdominal fat that we have as men strangling our organs. Now, if you compare that to women, they've got it in their butts and their thighs, right? And that's why it's not such an issue for them, because there's not really many vital organs around that area. So that's why as men, we need to reduce our body fat levels as much as we possibly can. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to tell you what the fat loss science says 100% to be true, and I'm sure that you've heard this before. The only way to burn off body fat is for you to enter a calorie deficit. Now, what does a calorie deficit mean? Well, as shown by the very simple diagram here, it just means that the amount of calories that you are ingesting through your food and your fluid intake is offset or not by the amount of fuel that you burn up on a daily basis. Now, this is really, really important. If you think about a car, when it comes to fueling your car, your fuel tank of your car is only so big, yeah? So you can only put in a certain amount of fuel into that fuel tank. However, the human body's capacity to fuel up is limited only by the size of our stomach and our digestive system's ability to push all the stuff through. So if you're constantly putting fuel into your body, calories into your body, you're going to have a very difficult time keeping pace with burning that out. So the question is, how do you get into a calorie deficit? Well, there's 3 ways that you can do it. I'm going to list them in order of what I suggest to be the ones that you should do. So good is to increase the calories burned. We do this by being generally more active. The problem with doing this is that it is very difficult to double, for example, your calorie burn in any period of time. Now, the reason for this is the vast majority of calories that we burn on a day-to-day basis comes down to one major thing, and in fact, it's about 60 to 70%. That's just called our resting basal metabolic rate. It's something we can't really change too much aside from putting on muscle. So realistically, to try and increase the amount of calories you burn by a massive amount is quite difficult. It's a good way to do it, but not at its exclusivity. So the second way, which is better to get into the calorie deficit, is to reduce the amount of calories that you actually consume, that you take in. Now, I make a very important point here, gentlemen. This is reduced calories, not reduced food. There is a big difference because reduced food to me sounds like eating less. I don't know about you, but I love eating and I want to continue eating. It's part of the pleasurable, it's probably the most pleasing part of the week. Okay, so it's about reducing calories, eating nutrient dense food, not calorie dense food. So that's a better way to go about doing it. But of course, what I'm working towards here is the best thing that you can do to get into a calorie deficit is to do both. That means reduce the calories in by a small amount and increase the calories burned by as much as you possibly can. And the combination of those 2 things will send you into a calorie deficit. Now, I just wanted to cover that as a start point because despite the fact that it seems so simple, we're getting confused by this bro science or the latest marketing, and it sends people off track. They think to themselves, there's got to be more to this. There's really no more to it. The additional confusion is based on the mental battle, not the fat loss science. So, here is why nutrition is so important. I work by the phrase that nutrition is 90% of your results. You simply cannot outrun a bad diet. So let's put some numbers to this and see how that's possible. Well, if we take, for example, a McDonald's Big Mac here, okay? And we look at the amount of calories in that McDonald's Big Mac, it's about 560 odd calories. Let's look at another one. 600 ml Coke, 253 calories. A meat pie, the Aussie man's favourite lunchtime snack, 550 calories. And say 4 bottles of beer at 150 calories each is about 600 calories. So the question that you want to ask yourself, remember we're thinking in terms of deposits and withdrawals on calories, getting into a calorie deficit to lose weight, is how easy is it to burn off approximately 500 or 600 calories? Well, then we go to the other side, and what I've done here is listed some average calorie burns for the average guy for a number of exercises. So let's look this one here. 60 minutes lifting weights will burn somewhere between 2 and 250 calories. So that means in order for you to burn off your Big Mac at 563 calories, you need to do 2 to 2.5 gym sessions or 30 minutes lap swimming, bringing up about 250 calories. That means an hour of lap swimming, burning off 1 single Big Mac. You drink 4 beers, 1 hour of lap swimming still doesn't get you into a calorie deficit if you were using those 2 items alone. Now, of course, it's more complicated than that because you're having multiple foods and multiple burnings of energy. Let's look at rowing. You're looking at about 3 to 350 calories in 30 minutes of vigorous activity, and probably the one that most of us would start doing as part of our exercise regime, and that is walking. Walking for 30 minutes is going to burn off about 150 calories. So that means if you walk for 2 hours, you're going to burn about 600 calories, or the equivalent amount in 4 beers. Now the question is, how many of us that are sitting down this afternoon are going to drink 4 beers and then go for a 2-hour walk? Now this is where nutrition is key. But remember, if you're making compensations elsewhere in your diet, it makes it allowable that you can have those 2 or 3 beers or half a bottle of wine like I do and still get away with it. And this is where nutrition is key. So let's crack into it. I'm now going to give you, gentlemen, a rundown of the 4 most important commandments that you need to know if you want to get into a calorie deficit and start losing weight. And the first one of these is to eat whole foods. So what do we mean by whole foods? The way that I think you should think about this is, did this thing that I'm consuming in its current form once grow, walk, or fly? Now, if it did do that, it's a whole food. Now, just to be clarifying, a sausage roll didn't walk, run, or fly at any time in its current form. But of course, a piece of pork did. There's a big difference there in the actual calorie count of eating the food in its whole form versus its processed form. So effectively what's happening, guys, is as you process food and try to turn it into a convenient food for humans to like and enjoy and be able to eat on the run, like a sausage roll or a meat pie, what happens is you denature the natural proteins and nutrition in that food, but in order to improve its shelf life, and in order for it to be tasteful, what we've got to do, because we've taken all the good stuff out of it, we need to add back in sugar, salt, and fat to make it stable again, to make it packageable, and to make it taste good on the run. So the challenge with doing this is whenever you add sugar and fat back into a food that's been broken down, you're adding in calories that then need to be burned off or at least factored into your daily energy intake. Does this make sense, gents? So hopefully that helps. If you're looking down at your trolley cart, or when your missus or your partner brings home your food and you see, more than 20, 30, 40% packaged foods, anything more than, a bag to put the spinach in or a wrap to contain your beef steaks, you're going to be in trouble because you're going to be consuming foods that are higher in calories. So that's commandment number one, eat whole foods. It's such a simple change to make. And if you're looking at this image here in front of you, just choose foods from that list. Delicious, fresh foods, cooked in a fatless way. Happy days. So let's go to the next one. Stop eating reactively. This is a key one for men. Men typically eat fairly well when they're at home, but where they get let down is on their work trek when they stop off at the service station and go and get a pie and a Coke. And they pump in, 600 or 700 calories that could have been half of that had they have been prepared. So let me ask you a question. When do you eat poorly? Looking at you, brother. When do you eat poorly? It's going to be when you are stressed, when you are lacking of time, or when your guard is down and you're doing something like getting boozy at the pub or playing cricket or whatever it is. Now, like I said, the Jase Stuart kind of better body method is all about moderation. We can factor these things in, but you do, in order to get into a calorie deficit, have to make concessions elsewhere if you want to lose the fat. So I always work off the 6 Ps. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. Now and I'm speaking to all of those of you out there that I'm currently working with, that you get caught out when you haven't prepared. So thinking about meal prep doesn't have to be this enormous, crazy thing that takes up a lot of time. It can really literally be a pre-made salad from Woolworths or Coles or wherever you shop. Skip the mayonnaise, throw in a bunch of breast chicken and toss it up with some seeded mustard. It doesn't have to be something crazy that takes you all of your Sunday to prepare. It can take you 5 minutes in the morning or 5 minutes in the night, stick it in a container and Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. But you've got to take control of your environment, guys. If you're a victim to your environment, and this goes for life more generally, you're never going to feel happiness or in control. You'll be a pinball that's just getting beaten around, unable to kind of find form and find happiness. You'll get that happiness, you'll get that control, and you'll get that weight loss when you start to control your environment. That's number 2. Number 3. Slow down and eat your food. I want to talk to you briefly about the brain and belly link. What does that mean? Well, here's what happens. When we chew our food, we start an eating response, and that food's got to get from here down to our guts via a tube, right? And it empties into the tube and it lands in our stomach. Now, the process of which the stomach realizes it's distended enough to know that it's full takes around 15 to 20 minutes. Now, what actually happens at that time there, that 15 to 20 minutes, when the receptors in the stomach go, I'm full, they send some chemical messages and signals back to the brain to say, okay, you've filled the tank up, stop eating. It's kind of like when you're at the petrol station and you just automatic fuel it and it starts to click, tick, 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 I'm full. It's the exact same thing, but the problem is it takes about 20 minutes for that message to be sent by the stomach to the brain. Now, if you are gorging your food, and the thing that you've repeatedly heard me say is like a hyena to a fresh kill, you're not giving your body any time to detect that the stomach is already full. Think about it this way. It's like being at the petrol station, and despite the fact that you're getting that clicking noise to stop filling up, you just keep pouring it up and all the fuel's pouring back out of the car and you're happy to do it. This is what's happening in your body. So the antidote to this, the fix to this, guys, is to slow down. Enjoy your food. Now, I know that's always not going to be possible, not always going to be possible, but whenever possible, particularly at dinner with your family, you can put your knife and fork down in between each meal. Enjoy your food. Slurp water or some other drink with your food. Like, just chill out. The food's not going anywhere. And further to the point, if you were distracted watching TV or just being completely unpresent in your environment, you're not going to notice these signals. If you're enjoying your time, being mindful, slowing down, it's going to be a lot harder for you to overeat because you're going to give your belly time to say to the brain, hey, I'm good, I've stopped. It's kind of strange when you think about it that we're happy, we're satisfied, but we just keep piling it in anyway. Overeating is a habit, and it's a habit we can change. All right, guys, we're going to finish off with the last one, which is don't drink your calories. So for you men out there, this is an absolute banger. So I've put together this table for you to show you how influential fluids are in impacting upon your weight. In fact, check this out. A lot of the times when I do food diaries with clients, hey man, what I want you to do is list everything that you eat for me in a week. They do so. And their eating plan looks pretty good. And then I say, okay, cool. Do you not drink anything other than water, or have you just not put it on here? Oh man, I forgot to list that. I didn't realize I had to list that. And their calorie count coming from fluids alone can double the amount of calories they're actually consuming in a week. And we unlock it and we go, that's the reason why we're actually overweight. What's Alex saying? So, that mind to the stomach thing makes sense. Often when I cook my family meal, especially one that takes an hour from beginning to end, I finally sit down to eat and I'm not that hungry. And do you mean, Alex, when you're eating during the cooking? That's right, man. That's exactly why the reason it's actually happening. Yeah, exactly right. You're filling up your stomach and giving it time. So with these beverages, I want you to have a look. But let me first ask you a question. If I was to give you the option of eating 5 oranges in a row or giving you a glass of orange juice, which one's easier for you? 5 oranges in a row or a glass of orange juice? Of course, The glass of orange juice is simple. There's no chewing involved. It goes straight down into the guts and provides you with whatever you needed to get there. Okay? Well, check this out. Zoom in on this Coca-Cola. 258 calories, and this is a great example. Let me ask you a question which will really make this point. What is easier? To drink a 600 ml Coke or to feed you straight 16 teaspoons of total sugar, pure sugar, table sugar? Which one's easier? Give you the Coke or literally force feed you 16 teaspoons of sugar? Because when you're having a Coca-Cola bottle, that's what you're doing. But we don't realize that the fluid is so much easier to consume than the solid form. And a great example of here, for those of you that live in Australia, the old Boost juice is the one that sticks out to me. My little favorite was the one that I used to go to, Banana Buzz. Banana Buzz, that's got to be healthy, right? Provides me sustenance. How good's this? And I look at it, and it has 431 calories, 17 teaspoons of sugar, or almost 2 full gym sessions or an hour of walking for me to burn off that one healthy milkshake. You see the problem here, guys? See, when you become more self-aware and you start to understand nutrition, all of a sudden you can pick holes in what you're doing wrong and you can start to make progress. So this is where I really do suggest getting on board and getting a plan is really going to make the difference. This is just one thing, one strategy, or 4 commandments in a drop in the ocean of which we can help you to lose that belly or transform your body. And it comes from really what I call the 3x4 method. You heard me talk about this last week. Through improving your knowledge, making sure we're working with you to execute, and then down the bottom here, keeping you accountable on your nutrition, activity, your mindset, and your lifestyle, we make progress. We give you the knowledge. We make sure that you are executing that knowledge. And then we keep you accountable. We do check-ins. We have a support group. We make sure that the knowledge that you're imparting and putting into practice is playing out around your waist circumference and in your photos. And I'm sure you've seen all of the, transformation photos that I've been putting up, or the comments. These are guys just like you that are experiencing real world benefit. I've got a message here from Alex again. I usually don't eat during the process, but making the meal by the mind seems to be stimulated by the smell of food. Yeah, 100%, mate, and it's really, really hard to ignore. You've got it, mate. So to finish off with this final slide, guys, how does the process of starting a transformation, look like? I'm always indicating to you, if you want to get started, the first step is to book an intro call. Okay, the way this intro call goes is it's very informal. Any one of you that's already had one will just know. It's a simple call, 15 minutes, to simply say, do we like each other? And can I help? Is this something that I've seen a million times before? Can I help? And I really suspect that unless you have a very rare, genetic condition, what you're suffering and feels so unique to you and feels, keeps you so stuck is something that over 100 guys that I've worked with before have moved through. So we get on that call and there's, no obligations. It is simply, will this work for you? Can I help you? And do we like each other? And at the end of that call, I simply say to you, well, okay, cool. Do you want to schedule a call where we talk about potentially getting into the coaching program and what it takes for you to take to the next step? There's an application that I get you to fill inside, and then the clarity call comes next. We get on the phone for an hour, if you decide to proceed, and really work through questions around what are you trying to achieve? Why are you trying to achieve it? And what does a program look like that's going to get you from your current self to your ideal self? We call this the gap. The truth is, man, the only thing separating you from where you are to where you want to be is gaining the knowledge, the beliefs, the know-how, and being held accountable to your results, right? Because it's so hard to do this on your own. So if you want to book a call, in the notes of the post you'll find them, or you can just inbox me and we can start chatting from there. But don't procrastinate, whether it's with me or whether it's someone else. Now is the time, because right now what's happening is you've got a bunch of fat there squeezing your heart, not doing you any good. And you got to really at some point decide that I'm going to do something, and the more years that you let it go by, the harder it becomes. That's really a wrap for me, guys. Al, I don't think if there's any other questions, mate, but aside from that, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to enjoy your time this afternoon. Hopefully you'll place any comments or questions in the posts, and when you watch this video, I'll come back to addressing them later. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll chat soon. Big love, gentlemen, and let's transform.